Okay, here's a video on how to identify the parts of a board. As one of our objectives for this project is to learn how to read a set of plans. A set of plans that looks like this. So it doesn't give you word instructions, but it's giving you numbers and a drawing for which you have to follow in order to build your project. In order to understand these set of plans, we have to know the parts of a board. So a part of a board, we're not using our typical adjectives like top and bottom, left and right, front and back, because a board could have a top as this, but then you flip it around really quickly and now we have the top of the board here. So we're going to go over two things: the parts of a board, what adjectives we use in order to describe the parts of a board, and then the second thing we're going to go over, which uses the parts of the board, which is the dimensions of a board. Okay, so each of these categories, parts and dimensions, has 3 parts. So in order to remember the parts, we write out the word phi, F-E-E. So the F stands for the face of our board. The E stands for the ends of our board. So there's 2 faces, 2 ends, and then there are 2 edges. Okay, so these are the parts of our board. And so instead of using top and bottom, we're going to use end or end. Instead of using right or left, we will use the word edge. Instead of using front or back, we'll use the word face. So the key is, well, how do I identify where the ends are on a board? How do I identify where the face is? On a phone, if I asked you where the front of the phone would be, you would look and find the screen or the home button. Or if I asked you to look where the top was, you would find the shut-off button for your iPhone, or the bottom would have the charger plug. So for a board, the first thing we look for, and you always do this first, is the grain. Now, what is a grain? The grain are these lines right here. So in order to identify these parts, we first locate the grain and the direction of the grain. So I'm going to trace one of these grains. So I'm just going right down this grain here. And if I asked you, tell me how long is this grain, you would say I'm going to measure from top to bottom, but as we said, we're not using top and bottom, so we're going to use the word ends. So I'm going to measure from this end of the line or grain to this end. So this part of our board becomes the end, because that's where the grain ends. This is our other end. So that's the first thing. Now we know that if this is the end, and I asked you where the edge of this grain is, you would say, well, the edge is here. This is our other edge, not right or left. And then last, that gives us our face. So here's one face. Here is the other face. So our 3 parts: face, ends, and edges. And it's determined by the direction of the grain. So if you don't have grain on the board, it doesn't matter. This is really important because now we get into what are called our dimensions. There's 3 dimensions on a board. We have length, we have width, and we have thickness. The length, just as we said here, if I asked you how long this line is, you would measure from end of the line to the other end. So the length always goes with the end parts of a board. The width of a board is always from edge to edge of that line. So I'm going to say edges. And then the thickness is from face to face. So it goes from here, one face to the other face. So that is the thickness of our board. So parts, face, ends, edges. Remember, we're using the word phi. Our dimensions, length, width, and thickness. So now if I was to ask you, how long is this board? I'm just going to write the word or the letter L for length, T for thickness, W for width. I'm going to take my tape measure. The grain is going this direction, so I'm going to hook my tape on one end of the grain. And our board is 9 7/8. So I write 9 7/8 of an inch. Our thickness is from face to face, so I hook it on one face, measure to the other, so that's a 1/2 of an inch. And our width of it is from edge to edge. So our width is 2 inches. So that's the parts and the dimensions. So for your assignment, you should have your board labeled with the 2 ends, the faces, the edges, and then you should tell me what the length of your board is that you had, the thickness of your board, and the width of your board, and take pictures of those and upload those to the NEO assignment. Please let me know if you have any questions.